Smoke rises over a stone square in Rouen, France. The year is 1431. A young woman stands tied to a wooden post. She is only 19 years old. Soldiers push a torch toward the wood beneath her feet. The flames begin to climb. But this woman is not a criminal. Just 2 years earlier, she saved a kingdom. She had almost no education. She had no training as a soldier. And yet she led armies. She helped lead a king to his crown. Now, in a city ruled by her enemies, the girl who helped save France is left to burn. How does a poor farm girl become a soldier, a savior, and finally, a flame? This is the story of Joan of Arc. The year is 1412. France is already broken by war. For generations, France and England have fought a brutal conflict. Historians will later call it the 100 Years' War. Whole regions lie in ruins. Crops fail. Soldiers roam the land, taking what they want. The French king is weak and often sick. His own nobles fight each other for power. As Joan grows up, the crisis grows even worse. In 1420, a treaty promises the French crown to the English line, cutting out Charles, the rightful French heir. England now controls large parts of northern France, including the capital, Paris. By the time Joan is a teenager, many believe France may not survive. In this broken kingdom, in a small village called Domremy, a girl named Joan is born. Her parents are simple farmers. They raise sheep and grow crops. Joan grows up praying often. She is known in the village for her gentle nature and her deep faith. When Joan is 13 years old, something changes. She hears a voice in her father's garden. It comes with a bright light. She later says it is the voice of Saint Michael. Soon, other voices follow. Saint Catherine, Saint Margaret. They speak to her again and again. The voices give her a clear message. France must be saved. The English must be driven from French soil. And she, a 13-year-old farm girl, must be the one to do it. For 4 years, Joan tells no one outside her family. Who would believe a peasant girl claiming to hear voices from heaven? But the voices do not stop. They grow louder. They grow more urgent. The flame in her grew brighter. At 16, Joan can wait no longer. She travels to the nearby town of Vaucouleurs. She asks to see the local commander, a nobleman named Robert de Baudricourt. She tells him plainly, she must go to the royal court. She must speak to Charles, the uncrowned heir. She must help him save France. Baudricourt laughs at her. He sends her home. But Joan returns again, and again. Her certainty never changes. Slowly, something about her conviction begins to work. Local villagers start to believe her. Word spreads through the region. Some say a local prophecy once spoke of a maid who would come to save France. People begin to wonder if Joan is that maid. Eventually, Baudricourt agrees to let her go. In February 1429, Joan sets out for Chinon, where Charles is staying. She cuts her hair short. She wears men's clothing for the journey, for safety on dangerous roads. The trip takes 11 days through territory controlled by enemies. She arrives exhausted but unharmed. Charles is suspicious. Many people claim to have visions. Many people claim to speak for God. According to a famous story, to test her, he hides among the nobles at his court and puts another man on the throne, dressed as the king. Joan walks into the hall. She looks past the false king. She walks straight to Charles and kneels before him. The room falls silent. No one had told her which man was the true heir. Charles is shaken. He still does not fully trust her, so he sends her to be questioned by priests and religious scholars for 3 weeks. They search for any sign of witchcraft or lies. They find none. Instead, they find a girl whose faith seems pure and impossible to break. Charles makes his decision. He gives Joan armor, a horse, and a small group of soldiers. He gives her a banner painted with the image of God and the words, Jesus, Maria. She has had no training as a soldier, but she rides toward the city of Orléans, which has been under English siege for 7 months. Orléans is the key to France. If it falls, the road to the rest of the kingdom lies open. The city has held out, barely, for 7 months. The soldiers inside are exhausted. Hope is almost gone. Then Joan arrives. She does not fight like a typical commander, planning from a safe distance. She rides at the front of every charge, her white banner raised high. Soldiers later say her presence alone changes something in the army. Men who had stopped believing in victory suddenly fight like they have nothing to lose. During one assault, an arrow strikes Joan in the shoulder. She falls. Blood soaks through her armor. Any normal soldier would be carried from the field. But within hours, Joan pulls the arrow out, has the wound treated, and returns to the battle. The soldiers around her watch in disbelief. On the 8th of May, 1429, after 9 days of fighting, the English abandon the Siege of Orléans. The city is free. News spreads across France within days. The girl with the white banner has done what armies of experienced commanders could not. The flame in her grew brighter, and now all of France can see it. Orléans is only the beginning. Over the next weeks, Joan leads French forces to victory after victory along the Loire River. Towns and fortresses fall back into French hands. English commanders, once confident, now fear the mere mention of her name. Joan has one goal beyond the battlefield. Charles must be crowned. A king who has not been crowned at Reims, the traditional site of French coronations, is not seen as a true king. Reims, however, lies deep in enemy territory. The journey there is dangerous and uncertain. Joan convinces Charles to march anyway. Town after town opens its gates without a fight, inspired by her victories and her reputation. On the 17th of July, 1429, inside Reims Cathedral, Charles VII is crowned King of France. Joan stands beside him, holding her banner. She later says this is the proudest moment of her life. Her mission, the one given to her by the voices years before, is now complete. But Joan does not stop. She has tasted victory, and she still believes the voices want more. She wants to push the English fully out of France starting with Paris. The king's advisors are more cautious. They prefer slow negotiation over risky war. Tension begins to grow between the girl who hears voices and the court that crowned her king. In September 1429, Joan leads an attack on Paris. This time, fortune turns against her. She is wounded again, this time in the leg, during fighting near one of the city gates. The assault fails. Charles orders a retreat. For the first time, Joan tastes defeat. Over the following months, royal support for her grows cold. Some advisors see her as useful only as a symbol, not as a true military leader. Others grow jealous of her fame. Without full backing from the court, Joan continues fighting with a smaller force, defending towns from English and Burgundian attacks. In May 1430, near the town of Compiègne, Joan leads a small group defending against a Burgundian assault. The fighting turns badly. As her soldiers retreat into the town, the gates close before she can pass through. Joan is pulled from her horse and captured. The voices that once seemed so clear now cannot save her. The Burgundians sell Joan to their English allies for a large sum of money. The English have waited a long time for this moment. They cannot simply execute a famous war leader. The people might honor her even more as someone who died for France. Instead, they choose a different path. They will destroy her good name first. Joan is handed to church authorities loyal to the English cause. She is accused of heresy, of disobeying the church, and of claiming that her voices came directly from God. Her trial begins in January 1431, in the city of Rouen. For months, judges question her again and again, searching for any mistake in her answers about the voices, her clothing, and her claims. They lock her in an ordinary prison, guarded by English soldiers, instead of a church prison, where she might have been treated more gently. Still, she answers question after question, day after day, without any legal training. Joan, still a teenager, has no lawyer and no one to advise her. Yet she answers the judges with surprising sharpness. When asked if she is in God's grace, a question designed to trap her either way, she replies that if she is not, she hopes God will put her there, and if she is, she hopes God will keep her there. Even her judges are surprised by how calm she stays. At one point, worn down and afraid, Joan signs a statement agreeing to wear women's clothing and to deny her voices. For a moment, it seems she might escape death. But within days, she puts on men's clothing again inside her cell and tells her guards that her voices were true after all. To the judges, this is enough. A person who recants and then returns to her claims is, in their eyes, a relapsed heretic. In the end, the verdict has already been decided before the trial begins. Joan is found guilty of heresy. One of her greatest crimes, according to the court, is wearing men's clothing and claiming her voices come directly from God rather than through the church. On the 30th of May, 1431, she is led to the marketplace in Rouen. The flame that saved France would now consume her. Joan asks for a cross to hold as she dies. A sympathetic English soldier breaks 2 sticks and ties them together, placing it in her hands. As the fire rises around her, witnesses say she calls out the name of Jesus again and again, until her voice can no longer be heard. She is 19 years old. For years, Joan's name remains a symbol of shame for some and a symbol of injustice for others. But history does not forget her. After Charles VII retakes Rouen, he orders the first inquiries into her trial. Later, Joan's own family asks the church to look again at the case. In 1455, 24 years after her death, Pope Calixtus III authorizes a new trial. Witnesses come forward. Evidence is reviewed with fresh eyes. The new court reaches a different conclusion. Joan's original trial, they find, was deeply unfair, run under political pressure, with no fair process. The court officially clears her name. The girl condemned as a heretic is declared innocent. Almost 500 years later, in 1920, the Catholic Church takes the final step. Pope Benedict XV declares Joan a saint. The peasant girl from Domremy, once burned in a public square, now stands among history's most honored figures. She becomes a patron saint of France, a symbol of courage, faith, and national identity that lasts to this day. Statues of her stand in cities across France. Soldiers, students, and ordinary people still say her name when they talk about standing firm against impossible odds. Joan's story carries a lesson that reaches beyond religion or country. She had almost no education, no wealth, no military training, and no power in her society. What she had was a simple, unbreakable belief in something she knew to be true. That belief moved kings, turned the tide of a war, and outlasted the very fire meant to erase her. They lit a fire to end her. They lit a legend instead. Joan of Arc lived for only 19 years. Yet her name is still remembered today, in books, in films, and in the streets of France that carry her image. A flame can destroy. But sometimes, a flame can also become something that never truly goes out. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to EraSpeak for more history told through the words you need to master English. See you in the next video.